So and watch the art freeze up. All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ringer Hire Show. Hey, it's good to be back. And I got the two best co-hosts tonight, Kylie Whitley and Jason Risoli. How's everybody doing?
We're good.
You are fantastic.
Happy to be back.
The trio's back.
I know, right? We had a little break there. Hey, tonight we're going to talk about a great subject about employee retention. And you know the drill. We'll be right back after this video. I just noticed Facebook, they come out with some serious, when I go live on here, this whole big red ring comes up here now. They're really changing things up.
Getting fancy.
Yeah, so there. So how's everybody doing?
Good. Dave, I noticed you have 20,000 followers now on LinkedIn. Congratulations.
Yeah, just hit it this week. Yeah. But I've been very, when people say when you have that many like that, I'm very selective anymore, which I mean by that, it really works well. It's like I've been going out in my area, like a lot of the groups, and I'm trying to connect with people in the Lehigh Valley, more like Easton and Bethlehem. And I think we've talked about numerous times about on LinkedIn about, listen, you could have 200 people and have just as much engagement with 1,000.
Yeah.
It's who you have. But tonight, it's a great topic, and I love bringing this stuff up. Employee retention. I'm going to ask you both the question here. Both the question, and you're going to start it out, Kylie. What the hell do employees want? What do they want? In your opinion?
To feel valued and like you are being considered and that you have the ability to grow where you are. I was actually talking about this. I thought it was so funny when you brought this topic to me because I was just having this discussion about the feeling that I think employees get when you bring somebody else in for a role without having the discussion or opening it up to your internal employees as well. I think for almost anybody, it would just be to feel valued and like you have the ability to grow where you are instead of feeling like you need to look elsewhere in order to expand your abilities.
All right. Okay. Jason, now it's your turn.
Well, again, there we go. I was making sure we had some visitors tonight, and Kenny's there. So
he's there. We got enough for the show tonight. We got Kenny.
I always bring up Maslow's hierarchy of needs of where foundationally what people need when they have a job. But it really goes back to what's that person desire. You have to find that niche of what that individual wants. It might be a work-life balance. It might be job security. It might be money. It might be good benefits. It might be the hours of work. What's their shift hours. It might be that it's part-time or full-time. So every person is different. And what's key to employee retention is connecting the dots and understanding what it is that person wants out of that job and out of that company, out of their career, so that way they stay engaged.
But now I listened to both of you there, but then when you look at some of the companies, I'm gonna give you an example. Like, I'm sorry, we got to introduce Kenny. Kenny's there. He's already got two things. Oh my God, David have salt. That is yes, Kenny. When I grow a beard, it's like a goat. And Jason,
I'm smiling.
There you go. He's fine. So we got Kenny in there. When I look at some of the companies, and you're as a recruiter, you're hiring and you're hiring and you're hiring and you're not getting sometimes anywhere. You're like, you're gaining 10, but you're losing 5 or 6. constantly over and over. Don't you feel that some of the companies, like, I mean, I know we're going to talk about some things tonight, but to invest more so in that than just constantly going to recruiting? It's nice for us to have jobs to recruit for too, but that's got to take a toll, right, Kylie?
I mean, yes, I think the frustration on that side of it, that's coming from more of my particular role over the years, is when you go to your hiring managers and you're like, look, this would change your attrition, and they don't want to listen. They don't want to go after finding, matching market value or better benefits, or, you hear these things as the recruiter over and over and over again, that here's why I'm not accepting this offer, especially when you get them to the end, they get the offer and they choose to go with another company. And you bring that feedback in, and to Jason's point, it is often a plethora of things. It's, you don't have the benefits that I'm looking for. Somebody else offered me more money. But I feel like in that scenario, when you're choosing a new role, oftentimes those are the two that I hear on the talent acquisition side, is that benefits are not good enough and that somebody else is offering more money. I think that money tends to dictate quite a bit when you're talking about an initial offer, not necessarily internal retention, but initial offer.
That's what I was thinking. Jason, how do you in HR in your field, you need that data? I'm sure you need all that data. If the recruiters, if we don't provide that, at least, well, if they're not going to increase the money, okay, or salary, but at least these are the kind of things you need to know, right?
Absolutely. And it's so funny because when Kylie and I used to work together back, she'd be trying to I'd be trying to plug the holes in the boat as it's sinking, and she'd be throwing more, more stuff into the boat to keep it going. So it's that constant teamwork battle between recruiting and an HR business partner. But yeah, it goes to data, right? You have to try and be as predictive as possible. You can't wait for someone to resign and to fix a problem. You can't go in it blindly. And it's not just about employee relations and the retention aspect of it. It's also, to Kylie's point, the talent acquisition side. You have to know, you have to know what your shortfalls are as a company. So that way you can address that as part of your recruiting strategy, and also know, what kind of talent you're going to go after. Because again, if you're going after talent that you can't afford or is not going to be interested in, in your company for a different type of reason, that the data is showing as people leaving, then, she might have to, or talent acquisition team might have to change up their strategy on where to source candidates from. So that is huge. It's a huge part of talent acquisition and retention from that perspective.
Well, I always thought about, many moons ago, we knew the problems as a branch manager and market manager. We knew the problems, but sometimes management wouldn't listen. Wouldn't listen.
Yeah, you're right.
They're right. You know the problem. All right. You see it. You hear it every day. Like you said, the benefits. All right. If the benefits aren't going to get any better, let's face it. It's your job as a recruiter, I believe, to sell it, to at least something positive maybe from it. I know with families it's expensive, but if it's not going to change, Kylie, how do you bring that out to somebody and say, well, here's some maybe other perks that you can go with?
I mean, that's my immediate stance, is I am a sell the whole picture type of recruiter. I think that as a candidate, it's really easy to get narrow-minded in, okay, well, this other person's going to give me $5,000 a year more. Well, is that really worth, what's the work-life balance? What's the culture like? How many people did you talk to? How many rounds of interviews did they make you go through? How did it feel? But when you're talking apples to apples in pay, it's really hard to sell a big picture like poor benefits if you don't have the rest. And that is something I've experienced in the past, is we weren't hitting market value in terms of pay. And I can do that. I can sell the career progression and the growth and the opportunity. And I can give you that understanding that you might not see on your own.
Right.
If I don't have those things to sell to you, nope, there aren't really a lot of growth opportunities, or it's going to take you 5 to 10 years. Plus, we don't provide or don't have very good benefits. There's no 401k match. We aren't hitting the numbers. You're asking you're asking your recruiters to then become magicians. And I think that's... It's a little.
I get it.
But I think if you can have one or the other, that you're in a really good position, and that is what makes a good recruiter from from a not so good one is, can you get in there and into the nitty gritty and get on level, on par with the people that you're interviewing, and help them to understand what the company has to offer as a whole picture, as a package, instead of nitpicking or itemizing each individual detail, because those can be really easy to focus on the one or two negatives.
Jason, on that part, when everybody's giving you all the I know insights, you need insights. I'm sure it's just a lot of insights. How do you sell that to upper management in an HR role? Like, how do you say this is what has to be done, or you see it, the cost? I mean, I've learned to where if you can show somebody, if you can just write it down, show them, boy, it goes a long way than just us talking about it. But if you show the person, they might sit back and be like, wow, you're right, maybe, and maybe change.
Yeah, I mean, it's a proven fact that it costs twice as much to hire a new employee than it does to retain an employee. So and that's a fact, right? So yeah, getting to the facts of what that costs the company and explicitly explaining it to the leadership team or the ownership. I did that at Sears. I mean, I presented to the board of directors and the owner of Sears, who was private equity backed, and was able to sell an investment, a 7-figure investment on employees because of the cost of turnover at that investment, and also to making sure that you were benchmarking against what your competitors are paying or offering from a benefits perspective, all the data that goes along with why employees are leaving. Yeah, you have to be prepared to have those conversations. And one thing that I'll say is, everyone brings up, well, people leave because of their boss. Yes. People will leave because of a bad boss. Right. Okay. People will leave for that. But I've never heard someone take a job because of a boss. Have you, Kylie? I mean, does someone ever that they don't know? You say, oh, I want to take this job because I like that person that's hiring me, that hiring manager, and I want to work for them. I've never heard that before. And I trust that Kylie might not have heard that before either. But, they might leave for a bad person, but they might not, but they're not going to go and take a job for a person. They're going to take a job because of other things that they're attracted to in the company, not necessarily the person hiring them. So I might be devil's advocate a bit. I don't know.
I think that's yes and no. I definitely don't think you ever leave because somebody reached out to you and it's an apples to apples offer, and you're like, oh, but I really like this person that I've never met before.
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely not. Yeah. I definitely think people leave because of and you don't even have to narrow it down specifically to a bad boss, but poor culture.
Yeah.
Just the team environment and the structure, and I think that will push people out oftentimes. I will say, if you're out and you're exploring and you have 2 or 3 offers and they're all relatively comparable.
Right.
The role that I'm in now, I had 3 that were very, very comparable offers.
Yeah, you were saying that.
And Carrie Larson, my director, is the one who interviewed me, and it was her. It was a 20-minute conversation with her, and I just could feel it. The connection was there. I felt respected. And she was able to very quickly just make me feel good and excited about not only the opportunity that was directly in front of me, but the opportunities that would come with it. So I do think to a certain extent, people will, if that feeling is right. I don't think I was like, ooh, I can't wait to work with Carrie. But I really appreciated what she fostered in the feeling going into it. So I don't know how you would separate those two.
So I want to jump in there, Dave, because I agree with Kylie. Energy is huge. So like if you get a good energy, a good, you might want to call it a vibe, but it's really that energy that if someone's excited about where they work and the opportunity that they're providing you, that energy is very addictive and very contagious to other people. And going to Kylie's point about a negative culture is a job killer, right? So people will leave. I've interviewed for places where I've talked to people and they're not excited about where they work. And I'm like, well, why would I want to work there if they're not excited about where they want to work? Why is it going to be different for me? So, so there's definitely that vibe, that energy that you look for as a job candidate, but also from an employee retention standpoint, why to stay there.
How long did you 2 work together? For people that don't know, I know you both worked at Sears. How did you just meet? We've never talked about that real quick. You've known each other for a couple of years, right? At Sears.
Well, we worked together for 2.5 years.
Probably,
maybe?
Yes, yeah,
somewhere in there. Because in my first few months, I didn't have any overlap with Jason. I had heard his name and we on email chains that he was relevant to, but I was probably there for about a year before our personal roles really started to overlap. It was once I started getting into the harder hitting areas and harder to fill that he had to deal with me at that point, because I was
I had to deal with you.
There were people that were a little angry because I was
like, which Kylie did you get? Which Kylie did you get? Right? That's funny. I love that.
My current boss tells me that I Kylie situations. He's turned me into a verb.
Kenny here. Well, we got Kenny here. You know, both have been my current for 35. Kenny 35.5. I love that. 35.5 years. That is a long time.
Yes, it is.
To be with companies nowadays, because it's to get to that point now. I'll tell you what, I'll never make that. I'll never make it. Every time something, it's like 8-9 years, and then something happens. I'm like, what the hell? You know, I can never win. I want to be at those place for like this job here. I like to be there for 20 years, but I'll be 80 some years old. So I don't know.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. So, but I wanted to ask you, Jason, this is doing the great research of my books here about constantly all these papers, is one of the things that they talked about is about being honest. And as simple as that sounds, being honest. And I kind of related with Kylie being in recruiting is there's some things like you know about the job, but do you say it? Like, you know what I mean, Kylie? Like, you might see some negative things that are going to come, but you really don't tell that person when you know it's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I can say that I've had those experiences. Probably more earlier in my talent acquisition career. I've been fortunate where I am now in the last couple of places to not really have to deal with that so much.
Man.
But I will say that I've had some experiences where it all felt very scripted. I felt like if I veered, that I was going to divulge something that was going to make my already difficult job because of lack of market value and competitiveness even harder. So yeah, it's an interesting spot, and I think for me, I enjoy being in a spot where I can go to bed and feel good about it at the end of the day, and where you're lacking that honesty. It is hard to feel good at the end of the day, especially when you're making that offer. There's the excitement of like, oh, good for you. They're excited. They can't wait. You gave them the job that they've been pining for. But then you kind of know that, well, you glamorized this just a touch.
Just a little touch, just a little bit.
I don't think that that's the norm, though. I really don't. I think maybe you have some recruiters that will, but I personally, from my experiences, don't feel like that is the norm.
Yeah,
it.
But for Jason in HR, I mean, being honest, how do you practice that? I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but honest. Okay, it says preach honesty. Talk about honesty. Is it something that you, when you're at a meeting, you bring up, or do you just? I think people probably feed off that, Jason, whether it's the truth or they're just saying this or just saying that, or
no. I mean, it's obviously. What kind of person will you be if you hired somebody and said one thing and then a couple of weeks later or a month later the exact opposite happened? What does that do about yourself and the relationship that you have with that new hire? So of course you want to be honest. You don't want to you don't want to tell someone, oh, everything's peachy and the roses smell great, and then something comes out a week later like, dude, I quit a job for this. Like, really? Right. But there are times where honestly there's things that you might have knowledge of. And, I've had that quite a bit in HR where you can't say it because of, disclosure reasons. There might be, the company might be up for sale, or the company might be, that plant is going to be shutting down, and you can't say anything, but they're still hiring, but that plant's going to shut down. Or it's going to move, like, that plant's going to move, but it's only going to move 50 miles. It's still a lot, but you can't say anything because you're under a non-disclosure, from that perspective, that could affect the deal or affect the real estate deal or whatever it might be. So there's times where you can't say something, and that's the way it is. But for the most part, if you can, you should. That's how I feel.
I think from the recruiting side of things, that's often the case, right? Like, nobody's telling you that you're genuinely not allowed to. But if you say the wrong thing, and that goes back to your hiring managers when they're interviewing that candidate, you are the one who it comes back to. So you give, I think, as much as you can, and then you leave that to the hiring managers to really lay out the nitty gritty, the dirty details of truly what to expect. Right. I think that falls more to their responsibility than it does to the recruiters.
For that part. Jason, what does culture mean? I know these the little words, but we always talk about company culture and everything. What does culture mean to you? How do you show culture? What do you do to get yourself out there as a company? Like what are some things that you've done in the past or
well, I mean, culture is it depends on how you want to, depends on how you want to describe it but culture is making sure that you're connecting the employees to the mission, vision, and values of the organization, that they know where they are and what their role is, and inspiring them to, to understand what their contributions are in a positive way. So, and then interconnecting that with each other, so that way everybody again is giving their all as part of the company and has that energy and excitement to try and achieve whatever that goals being set out for the company that year or that quarter or are. So again, it's bringing everyone together as a team and aligning it to the mission, vision, and values of the company. So there's different things that you can look at within a culture to reinforce it, to grow it, to to make sure that people are aligned to it. But ultimately, it's making sure there's an engagement and alignment between the mission, vision, and values of the company and the employee.
I think images say a lot. Just images of a company. Like when you walk in that place for the first time, you see pictures up on the walls about the company. You see, I don't know, like we talked before, I think, Kylie, you said how you walk into a place and the receptionist, how nice are they? You know what I mean? Like if that person just doesn't look happy and everything, do you want that person up front? How do you talk to that employee and tell them, listen, you're the face of the company. You are, when they walk in, you're the first person they see.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you do. Is you say, hey, look, we've handpicked you, we've selected you, we enjoyed talking to you, we like what you stand for, and we need you to really bring that to the table when you're upfront representing us. That's why we brought you in. And but yeah, I think everything starts from the second you walk into the door, and it seems. I don't think about it in that context anymore because I can't remember the last time that I had to walk in a door for. But when I think about it, I think of, you have your five senses, right? Like is it warm? Does it smell nice? Are people smiling? Are there, company pictures of outings and yeah, I think that all of it, you have to kind of take all that in, and it's, that first 15 seconds that you walk into the door, you inadvertently, whether you want to or not, you've now developed an opinion, whether that's a good feeling or nervousness. And I think a lot of that is going to carry into that next step when somebody comes and grabs you out of that room to bring you back for your interview. But I don't know that I would deem that as company culture, but I think that it's a really nice introduction into how you feel like that company culture might be.
Right. What would you think of Jason if he walked in, saw Jason first thing?
I love Jason.
He smiles good, right? He smiles good, right?
When he smiles, for it.
When he smiles. A lot of that, like we talked about the culture, and the other thing that they talk about, employee engagement. Again, just simple words as they are, but what is, to you, Jay, what is employee engagement? Is it just, we're having meetings, or we're what is it?
Well, I think what you're asking, Dave, is how do you measure it, right? I think that's what you're might be asking is how do you measure employee engagement? So, I mean, employee engagement, again, personal level, it could be different things to that employee. Okay. But overall, is how across the broad spectrum of the company, when you look at it, it's really, what's your retention? Are you an employer of choice when it comes to that? Do you have now a company where nobody ever leaves is not healthy, right? So, but do you have a healthy retention rate where your turnover is low? How do you compare against other competitors? When you post a job, Kylie, right, and you're an employer of choice, do you get one applicant or do you have 100 applicants on that post? So, there's measurements and KPIs that you should be looking at. How many of your new hires are coming from an employee referral, right? So
Right.
that's a great sign of
That's a big
engagement
one.
within a
Yeah.
company. So, you know,
Oh, I
so
didn't think about that
you're-
one, to measure it. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. So like if I work here and I love working here, then I want others to work here that I know, right? I want them to be a part of this also. So, and I always look at it as, what's the level of employee referrals as a great sign of engagement. But again, it goes back to, you know, there's individual things. It could be, you know, learning and development, career opportunities. It could be, if you're a scientist, freedom to innovate, right? Like if you got a lab and you have, you know, you're given this innovation, you know, ability to innovate and not be restricted. Oh, do this. They foster an environment of growth and innovation. That's huge. It could be, you know, how employee outings, team-based environments, employee paths where you can decide what team you want to work on. There's companies out there where you're not defined by a job description or a job title. You can actually create your own path within the company and decide where you want to place your work time and join different teams as part. So there's all different types of things that that you can look at. But again, it all goes back to what are the KPI, you know, some of those true KPIs of that show and measure growth. Obviously, there's surveys that you should be doing, you know, within the company from an engagement standpoint, engagement survey, and decide how many detractors you have versus, you know, attractors. So to determine what the level of engagement. So there's lots of different stuff and different touch points along the way. Are you looking at new hires? Are you looking at incumbent employees? Or are you, you know, and then what are you looking at from people that are leaving the company? How many retirees do you have? That's good. That's good. Healthy.
Yeah,
that's a good healthy retention, right? If you got a lot of people, if you have people that are retiring, that's 50% of your people leaving. Well, that might be actually be a good thing because they're actually staying there to retirement. But there's different things to look at.
I like the idea of the way you worded it for referrals, because if you're not getting them, if you think about it, really, if you're in as recruiting and you're not getting the referrals, maybe that's where you should sit back and say, well, besides money, because everybody, you know, when we went through the COVID stuff, you saw these big referral bonuses, man, up to 2,500. I've seen some for 5,000 just for truck drivers, a referral. I'm like, wow. But now that's all dwindled down, but that makes total sense. You know, how many do you have and how to measure that? We got somebody down here. Let's see. We have for tap. All right. How do you say that last name? You want to say Pandy?
Pandy. Yep.
Okay. Employee engagement. They don't work with one team, but they work with all the team, which is a difficult job. Kylie, I think you agree with that one.
Yeah, it is. But I also agree with just working with everybody. I think when you asked the question, my immediate was, are people getting, because I think from an internal perspective, are people getting on camera? Are you having weekly meetings? Are you getting involved with your team? So I think the way that you were going after it, Jason, was like a little bit of a different side of it. It was a more HR side than the way that I perceived the question. But it's interesting to think that there are just so many different dynamics. The one thing that I did agree on was referrals was one of the first things I thought of too. I get referrals on a regular basis, but I can say that there are companies that I've worked for that I didn't. And I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah, big time, especially for that. I wanted to talk about recognition. Again, does recognition have to be monetary? Does it have to be?
No.
Does it have to be money? Does it have to be? You've said it a couple of times. Treat people. You've always talked about that. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Yep. I think we all can agree with that. But what is recognition? Again, these are just little things. But how do you show recognition? Does a company? Do you use social media for it? Do you use in front of meetings? You know, in front of people that you bring somebody up, or I mean, just a simple little things.
Yeah. So. You know, the biggest thing I can say about recognition is be genuine, right? It's whether or not, you know, if it's money, it's money. All right. But if it's not money, make sure it's genuine, but also make sure it's in a format that's going to be acceptable to that associate. So, I mean, if you have to know your people, right? The people that if you manage people, you have to know them. You have to know whether or not they would want that recognition in a public setting, in a private setting. They want to, you know, I've had people where they've sent their spouses and children a letter saying, "Hey, Dad was awesome this week at work," you know, so they can post it on the refrigerator.
Stuff like that works.
I've recognized people that they had their first grandkid, so I sent them something, right? Or
see that right there. I'm sorry, that is perfect. Those ideas, like those little things like that you took the time because they had a baby or a grandparent. I think that's awesome.
And guess what? They're hooked, right? Because you cared, you were genuine, and that's the level of engagement that people need to have when they connect with their employees. Making sure that if someone hits a milestone anniversary that they know it, or but the other thing is just making sure you treat everybody consistent. If you're going to do recognition, that there's some level of consistency. If you can't wish one person a happy birthday and not the next person a happy birthday.
Right.
Certain things have to be consistent. But again, there's recognition comes in many forms. Most of them are not monetary, like you said.
That's Kylie. Is that everybody's job? That's the way I look at it. It's everybody's job. I think each of us have a part to play in that.
I think that goes back to the company culture, if I'm being honest. So from a hierarchy standpoint, yes, I have my manager. I would say at least every other week, there's some kind of a call out, whether it's a handful of people, it's one person, they've gotten great feedback from the business. It's whatever it may be. It's just, hey, thank you so much for your hard work. And it's on our team meeting and everybody gets involved and it's a really wonderful culture. But I can also say that I have coworkers that have messaged me and just said, hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your help. Perfect. Or that I have done that with. So that becomes an internal culture that's not facilitated. That's not fair. It is facilitated by the management because they're creating that environment to make the rest of the employees feel like that is a normal and a healthy and a good practice. So they're encouraging peers to do it because they're setting the example. And so I have one of the things that I love the most is they have this program where every quarter you can pick a person and they call it a yo buck. And you can give it to somebody. Once that person has acquired 3, they get either a monetary amount or an extra PTO day. They get to choose how they use it. Cool. They never expire. So let's say I got 1 right now and I didn't get another one or I got 2 right now and I didn't get another one for 5 years. Doesn't matter. Right. There's my 3. I still get that. So they really have, as a company, just facilitated an overall experience of a healthy culture, but also set just such a strong example to encourage at every level for us to do that for one another. And I think it just changes the dynamic in every way.
Yeah,
that does, because I think it's a lot.
Yeah, and Dave, I mean that's one of the jobs of HRs, right? To make sure that you have worked with management to set up those feedback channels. So
should it be
what Kylie was bringing up was like 360-degree feedback, which is huge. Peer recognition, supervisory recognition, but then also business partner recognition. So so making sure that 360 of people that are around you in the workplace are given an opportunity to either to let you know what you're doing good, but also what to critique you on what things that you might be able to improve on in an anonymous environment. So that's 360-degree feedback. However, HR also should be setting up with the management team a forum or a format so that way people can regularly give this recognition. That's what Kylie was bringing up about a reward system, right? Is that that's where HR comes in is working with them to say, hey, let's either set something up, a system up, so that way we can have that feedback given and received in a very easy manner to facilitate a good culture and a good work environment, or else a program that has defined rules and stuff like that, like the YOBUC, that has defined rules, so that way, again, helps to facilitate that culture. So,
well, it comes down to training, though. For it should be policies, right? It's got to be policies. You have to have the policies, right?
Well, if it's a contest or something where it's again there's monetary aspects to it, yes, there should be policies or rules or to guide that, especially because some of this stuff can be subjective, but even if it is subjective, it has to have objective rules that go with it. But it doesn't, I don't think you have to have a policy just to say, hey, recognize somebody. No,
right.
That's just that's just a forum or a format of how it should be done. So I think there should be maybe some guides that are out there to help people on how to give recognition, when to give recognition, types of recognition. So I think there should be some aids or some training material. I don't think there necessarily needs to be a policy like you must recognize. No, I don't think
Kylie, that's why
that inhibits the culture that you're looking to get.
Then I like the wording that you use. That's why I like talking with you on that part. It's nice when you have a team like this on here because you could aids. I never thought about that. Like you have aids, and that makes total sense. Pratap says, I guess it depends on the nature of the business. Target orientated job would need some recognition in money form, while operational job would need some valuable recognition in open forums such as company-wide email. Yeah. Company-wide emails, I like them. I like them. Yeah. I personally do.
We have daily ones. It recognizes birthdays, people who have had children, work anniversaries. It all comes every day.
Every day, and that's a good thing. Kylie, social media. How important do you think that employee retention has to do with social media?
I think. Are we at a point now where we can confidently call LinkedIn a social media?
It seems like it lately, right?
I know anymore. I agree.
I don't personally think, well, you know what? I guess it's business dependent. If you're retail, I think that then talking about an Instagram, a Facebook, a traditional is incredibly valuable to your business. Yeah, I think something like talent acquisition, maybe not as much. Then I'm going to lean more towards a LinkedIn. And I think that's probably about as social media based as I think you need to be. But yeah, I think that's business dependent. I think that there are some. I have puppies that I'm selling. I'm not doing that on LinkedIn.
No, I know, right?
I am doing that on social. But if I'm trying to find an employee for our company, I'm trying to grow that part of our business, I'm going to be doing that on a maybe not so much of a traditional social media platform.
Right. For that.
Yeah, I agree completely, Carly, with that being, again, company specific, business specific. Small businesses are highly reliant upon social media platforms like a Facebook or something like that. Some, Instagram followers and stuff like that. Gym owner, think of a gym owner. Like, in order to grow that business, it's very community based, right? It's very.
You're not doing that on LinkedIn.
You're not doing that on LinkedIn. Correct. You're absolutely doing that on social media. But you got to think of how companies are formed, what they're built, and what they who they service, on how they expand their business. Landscapers and stuff like that. They're very community based. They're not doing that on LinkedIn. But yes, of course, Fortune 500 companies that are nationwide or global are more going to go towards a LinkedIn or a niche social media website that's more specific to their industry. But yeah, absolutely. Obviously appliance repair might be going to, ASTI or something like that, where that are very technical to those areas, or they might, participate in other things that home shows and stuff like that. But again, I think it's business specific. I couldn't agree more.
It is. And I like social media. And like you said, I'm the only one on LinkedIn. I think I put tickets in just because I didn't get a lot of views. I get tired of it. I send them tickets all the time. All right, what have I done now differently? I do. I put on there the ticket and I say, why does
explain this to me?
I know. Explain to me. And they said, well, David, you have to be consistent. You have to put out good content. I said, I've been putting out good content, but when you're only getting 500 views, I said, I want more. I'm sorry. And then it's so generated, but it's not always generated because I can tell by when she's typing, he or she, is typing it out. But that I'm the only one. I love doing that to them because something changes, because I've told you before, if you're real negative sometimes, that helps.
Really?
It does, like negativity or something that's controversial, or, you get the amount of views, and I don't know.
It's because it's engaging. It might be not engaging what you want it to be,
right?
But negativity draws engagement. It's unfortunate that it draws the wrong engagement. It might be a short-term thing. It's almost like when it comes out, how do you push performance management? You can either push it through rewards and recognition, or you can push it through a whip. Right? You might get that quick boost by whipping somebody, by telling them, hey, you're going to lose your job. They'll get a short term, but it's not going to last. You better get, to bring them in with the honey, and show them the recognition side. So the same thing with the commentary being, divisive and stuff like that. It draws engagement, but it's probably not long term. It's very wearing.
I think also being aware of quality versus quantity, right? So kind of
Right.
piggybacking on that, Jason, is
Yep.
yeah, you might have 500 people on there, but are they just watching for the, the potential, like the negativity, the rile up to see who gets upset in the comments?
Right.
Or are they engaged because they're going to be here next week and the week after because they genuinely are interested in the way that this unfolds? So I think putting a little more weight into the quality versus the quantity is probably a better recipe for success.
That's what I've been learning a lot, and I can see the value of that. Oh, Bill Bradford, he's from Pittsburgh. Hey, Bill, how's it going? He's in DC this week. Oh my God.
Yep.
What is doing out there?
Kenny was saying hello to Bill too.
Kenny's been quiet tonight. Like Kenny just got out of, I think, LinkedIn jail for a while. He was missing in action.
He was
in LinkedIn jail, and he goes, "Did you miss me, Dave?" He sent a message. I'm back.
Oh goodness.
The shows, yeah, because he was gone for so long, and all of a sudden now it's like, but look, his it's not really long. So I'm trying to think, is he cutting back on his comment? Yeah, right. He's being. Oh, I know he'll come back and say that. Employee engagement team has huge involvement in bringing positive and appropriate social media presence. I'm sorry, I'm trying to connect with our previous topic. No, it's true.
That's perfect.
It is. I mean, they're on the server's part. The next part of it. This is a fun one here. Exit interviews. I know they're important, but I don't feel we do enough of them, and I don't think people believe them or they do anything with them afterwards on some of the things. Like if you constantly on, like when you get a review, we've talked about numerous times, it's always negative when somebody does it. But if it's negative for about one boss for 5, 6, 7, 8 times, maybe there's something of value in there. Management, you always see that, different things about management and everything like that. And I get that. But I think they need to be taken seriously on the exit interviews, but nobody really does them anymore, because that's when you put out, I guess, Kylie, the truth that you're feeling maybe.
I think the problem is that people still don't tell the truth.
That's
right. It's mind-blowing is you do these exit interviews, and it really is, it's the perfect opportunity. You're leaving. Tell us what you think. But people don't want to go down the rabbit hole anymore. They have emotionally checked out. They've put in their notice. They are moving on to greener pastures, if you will. And they don't want to relive it and go through it and have all the questions. And so they it was just time to move on. I got a better opportunity. They give you occasionally you do get the honest person, but I find it hard to believe that you're going to get enough honesty consistently enough to build any kind of true data points.
That's Jason. You got to agree with that. Because I mean, when you were saying that, Kelly, first thing I think of is like, well, I don't want to say because of HR. We always go down that route. Well, I didn't say this because why didn't you say it while you were working? Well, I didn't want to get in trouble or something. Like if you have a problem with somebody, I've said it before. I wish I would have backed the problem that I had with that one bad manager my whole career. I'm not going to go off on that, but it's a tit for tat, because that's something that I didn't deserve. And I wish I'll say it now. I'll never go through it again. I would do things differently, more professionally. I would have taken it, and towards the human resources part. But a lot of people don't like to go see Jason.
Well, with an exit interview, it's too late, right? So, I mean, it's really just a data collection at that point.
There's no redemption anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, we tried our best at Sears to try and use it as a counteroffer step. But it also goes to who's doing the exit interview. Like, is it done with the manager when the person's resigning at the time they resign? Is it done with HR during their resignation time frame? Is it done anonymously through like a third party after the fact? So there's different ways to do it. I'm not saying anyone is better than the other. However, I do have my own preferences, I would say. But at the end of the day, it's too late. And that's if someone even gives you notice, because a lot, again, with this generations that we have now, often they're just out. They're like, I'm out. Here's the keys. I'm like I left the vehicle, in the parking lot with the keys and the gas cap. So I mean, it's, I'm out. I'll send you the, we had that whole quiet quitting. Remember about that? So it's like, people just like, they already got the new job. They've been working there 3 weeks, and their manager finally reaches out like, hey, what's been going on? Well, I quit. Meanwhile, they collected 3 weeks of pay because the manager was not engaged with them at all. And that was, so, but anyway,
Bill said it right. Most people don't want to tell the truth.
They don't. So again, if it's truly, if you want an honest data collection, the best way to probably do that is either to have the HR person do it to try and gather that information, or even better, have it anonymously done after the fact by an independent company. That is the best way. But the only thing is that your survey rates might be a little lower. So you might, but again, that's the most neutral way to get the information. That's going to be probably most accurate. The thing is it's anonymous though. So to collect the data, to understand and tie it back to the employee when they say, "Oh, I'm leaving because my manager sucked," right? Well, you don't know who that was. You don't know what manager that is. So that's the problem with that. Getting it through HR, you might be able to get a little bit of that information. Or if you want it to be try and do a dive and catch save, then you want the manager to do it right up front. As soon as a person resigns, that manager should have the question, say, "What's going on? How can we make this better? How can we keep you?" But by the time I got to HR, you're not going to get that dive and catch. So each one has its own little benefits to it. But most likely, if someone's doing an exit interview, it's too late. The employee's gone, right? And you should have done it beforehand. You should have.
I think the reality too, Dave, is that you're saying like, oh, well, you want to know if it's multiple people saying like this was a bad manager, but I think that the exits themselves will teach you that, right? If you've got 3 teams that haven't lost anybody and you've got one team under this manager who 4 people have left in the last 2 months, you're probably going to start to look at what's different about the leadership in that team. So I think if you have people paying attention to the structure, you might not even need those as much as you think you do. You just need to pay closer attention.
Yeah, but do you pay attention? Does HR or whoever, like you said, Jason, where you're going to put the person or who's responsible? What do you do with those exit interviews? Do you follow up, Jason? Do you follow up and say, "Hey, John, this was said about you when you're," you know what I mean? Or do you just let it go?
So
I mean, it's hard.
What I did in my last role is, I obviously had a team that worked for me, but we had the manager do it initially to try and make the dive and catch, and then the HR. Someone on my team or multiple people on my team would go back to every single person and talk to them and say, "Hey, we know you talked to your manager. Here's some of the things you said. We just want to make sure that these were accurate," and talk. And sometimes it wasn't accurate, the information we got. And sometimes, but almost always they appreciated that we took the time to, if we could get them on the phone, to have that conversation and show that we actually cared. We were engaged as a company. We took this serious. We wanted to try and make it better. We wanted to have that conversation. So even if the person was very sour and they were checked out, they still appreciated the fact that the company was taking this seriously to try and make that reach out through an HR person. And then again, we had the third part. We did all 3. We had it where it was an anonymously done after the fact through a third party company to try and collect the data. So, but it is very, very much about data collection because someone leaves, you at least want to know why. You want to know that primary reason why because again, you don't know your problem then, right? So all you know is someone's leaving, but you don't know if it was wages, benefits, the manager, the work hours, the culture of the other employees, lack of job opportunity, something that was being done unethical, work-life balance, whatever it might be. There's so many different things, health and safety. So you don't know what the problem is. It might have just been that they weren't being invested in as through learning and development themselves. They weren't getting good training, but you have no idea what it is. But you have to collect that data. You gotta get it. It's very valuable.
You gotta get it. I see Kylie's moving. I'm like, all right. I see Jason's eyes.
Well, I'm confused why the layout just changed.
Yeah, no, you did that.
I did not. I put the comment up. I didn't touch the layout.
Oh, I thought you did that because I was like, well, now let me read. I thought you were doing that so we could see Jason's face or something. No. I was like, all right. With respect to exit session, we had a great experience at the account consultant. We believe that you're part of the family when you're with us, but after leaving, you're still a relative. I like the wording of that. I like that. In case anything goes wrong with your new venture, do reach out to us at any point to join the family back. You know what? I mean, again, you lost the employee, but if you leave on good terms, I don't think there's nothing wrong with leaving on the good term part and being honest. Again, I think, like you said, who you say it to, do they follow up with it? Kylie, I got to ask you on reviews. We've said it. People put negative things. Do you respond to your reviews for a company? Do you Do you see that more so a company?
I was managing the company branding for Sears Home Services, that was exclusively what I was doing. And I was actually going out of my way to first respond to the negative ones.
Right.
So I did find, the ratings increased pretty significantly in a much shorter time. I think it was a full point increase. So from like what was it? She said it was like a 2.4.
That's not bad.
When it started. I got it up to like a 3.3 or a 3.4, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is hard to do. I did it in like 8 months. And I really did find that being consistent in responding to the unhappy people was really, really beneficial. And I think won over that. I didn't just say, here's my email, contact me if you'd like anything further, and then do nothing with it. If they reached out, I was communicating with them and going backwards and figuring out, what team they had worked for and how we could assist and whether they were rehireable and, making sure that their profiles were intact. It was, so putting the effort in. And so, I think that the reviews are huge.
Huge. Jason, you got on the HR standpoint of it, that's a nightmare sometimes too, isn't it? Not a nightmare, but you really want to know those negative reviews, right? Because it comes back to the department in a way.
Yeah, we actually partnered with Kylie and the team there. We called them re-recruitment surveys, right? So, we get that survey, or we'd know if someone posted their resume even to see if to start looking for a job. We obviously the recruiting team has ways to go about and know if someone just added their resume or just updated their resume. We would go back and have a re-engagement process. So, that was going to lead me into a point that I was going to make, Dave, is much better than an exit interview is a stay interview. I don't know if you've a stay interview. So a stay interview is when you proactively have a conversation with an associate. Typically it's a manager. And they have a one-on-one conversation. They go down a set of questions, engage the associate's engagement, staying with the company. What's the likeliness to stay with the company over the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? Okay, so that's the same thing pretty much as a re-engagement interview that we were doing. But again, these are things that you could do proactively as an employer, as a manager, to test the level of engagement, so you prevent an exit interview. So you wouldn't want them to resign. You want to be able to catch this ahead of time. So again, a stay interview is a much better interview. Yep.
What level of honesty, Jason, do you honestly feel like you're getting out of a stay interview, though? If you have that manager asking the questions and
right? I imagine
the employee's problem is with that manager, with their manager, how are they going to feel comfortable? Doesn't that comes back to where we started with all this, is the company culture and the approachability and having a healthy enough environment to feel comfortable? Is there any other way, do you think, to be able to do that?
Well, again, it could be a one-over-one manager that does those interviews. You can have it as the HR that does the interviews. So there's different people that can do it. One thing that you need to do is track them, right? These stay interviews are only as good as the answers that you're getting, and then logging, being able to log those answers or retain that information. So that way, if the person does resign 3 or 6 months from now or a year from now, you can go back and say, well, what was their answer? And then why did they resign? And so how accurate was that information as it relates to the reason that they left? And then you can go back and then you can understand, well, were they BSing the manager, or was the manager not collecting the data and then look at how many people resigned, like you said before, on that team. So it all goes back to the data. We're data driven to society. We're data driven in our decision making, and it's nothing that's uncommon to HR or talent acquisition. It's every aspect of business. I mean, finance is data driven. Marketing, where to spend the money on marketing, is data driven. They're all data driven decisions. A CEO is data driven. So it's just that these are the touch points of what data we look at in HR and talent acquisition. But again, you can have different people do it. I would just suggest that you, again, probably be consistent. If it's going to be the one-over-one manager, the one-over-one manager does it for anybody, or anybody that has more than a year of service or something like that. Try and be consistent about it.
And that makes total sense. I wanted to bring up one more topic here. Wow, we're almost close to an hour, man. That goes fast. Geez, we're the Fox 3. Oh, am I allowed to say Fox 3? I'm sorry. Fox 5. I was like, wow, that's a whole hour there. Which brings into the last topic, and again, I didn't hit all the ones that I swear to God, Jason.
You never do.
I sit there and I get a lot of stuff and I never use it. I never get to it.
As long as you answer the questions, Dave, we're good. Just keep shooting them. Kylie and I'll knock them down.
Yeah, you knock it down, right? I'm glad I didn't have to read them all. But as simple as this even sounds, Kylie, encourage open communication. All right. It comes down to, again, what does it mean to encourage open communication? How do you encourage open communication?
I think it's fostering an environment where people feel safe to have an opinion that isn't the same as their managers. That it's okay if you say, if I come to you and say, I think that this would be done better this way, that I'm not worried whether or not that manager is going to go, well, I created that protocol. What do you mean to be done better differently? Instead, it's a cultivation of, awesome, let's expand on that. So I think it really is just making sure that people feel like they can speak and be heard without repercussion. And not to say that I think that you shouldn't have a chain of command and that I shouldn't know that if I just don't show up at work one day that there's going to be repercussions.
You're so wrong.
Right. But feeling like I have that open level of communication and that I can just go in and voice and get involved. Fox 4.
I thought you'd enjoy it. That was funny.
Yeah, I think that it is really, for me, it's cultivating an environment of safety.
But how do you feel you tell your employees that though? How do you
think you tell anybody anything? If you have to tell them, you've already failed. You have to show it. You have to create that feeling.
He's good. I like that. That makes total sense there. You got me on that one. That was good.
You just have to create that feeling. I didn't have to. My direct manager and my team lead, it's Brent and Angela. Neither one of them ever came to me and was like, if you ever need anything, and I'm sure they did at some point, but if you ever need anything, it's not a regular thing that they say to me, like, oh, Kylie, just come, you come let me know. I just know that I can. They're there when I need them without me having to ask. So I never had to have them say anything. They showed me before they told me. And so, yeah, I think it's action.
I like that. And then for Jason on his field, I don't know.
Yeah, his is a whole nother animal.
That's another whole level for HR. I'm sorry, HR, I'll say it over and over, scares the living hell out of me. I told you that.
I respect the ever living out of Jason. I have no desire for his job.
No, because I like having him on the show because I got to give you credit. You're the first HR person in 2 years that ever volunteered to come on the show, because open communication for HR. I'm sorry, it's like it comes down to everything we talked about, Jason, like trust. If I don't trust you, the HR department, if I don't trust this, my work must look at this sometimes and say, Dave, do we do something wrong to you? But it's not my work now. It's not my work now. It's in the past.
These are past experiences.
How do you sell that, Jason? I just say that. How do you sell open communication?
Well, communication is only as good as the person listening to it, right? So you could say whatever you want, but is it being received? Is it being listened? Right? As the manager, are they transparent in their communication back? Are they? So it's not just the open door policy; it's the two-way policy when it comes to that. So, but communication. Nobody wants to be surprised. So again, communication has different formats, different forums. For it. It could be in a team, it could be a team discussion, but I think the biggest thing is that it's healthy. It's healthy to have. There are times again when there's communication can't be had because of confidentiality reasons that might be related to a business, something related to the business or something related to a personnel, HR type of matter. But communication should be healthy. It should be a healthy fostering environment where, people can feel good about, giving feedback, but feedback's only as good as the person listening to it and re-engaging back with that person. At least to acknowledge the feedback and to acknowledge the communication. Even if it's not acted upon, at least that it's been heard. So, and that's important.
That's got to be for. Oh God, here it is for Kenny's last comment of the night. Look at that. There's Jason gone again. I could see he's just up his nose.
I'm drowning in Kenny's words right now.
He must not be. This can't be the thing that gets him in trouble, is it?
I don't know.
I don't know if that like delectable, scrumptiously, deliciously, edibly tasty good. Kenny, we should have Jason read all these things.
Yeah. Some of these comments, Kenny, I'm not sure if the LinkedIn police read it, they might think the wrong thing.
Yeah, right. I know. It's what poor Kenny and his smile. You know what I've always said about Kenny, and I put that out there. Kenny, I dare you. I would love to have Kenny on a show with all of us. Wouldn't you?
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Put Kenny right up next to Jason there, right there.
So much fun. Yes.
Kenny will not come on. I've already talked to him about it.
Did you? Yeah. Why not? That would be like the show.
I leave that to him. And yeah, I would love to.
I would stay weak and invite. Everybody, we'd invite the whole friggin' thing if Kenny Dunner would come on the show.
I like it. We'll work on it.
All right. In ending tonight, I want to give everybody a chance. I love doing this part of it. Kylie, if you had to give some advice out there, what do you feel are some top ways to keep your employees and keep them happy?
I mean, I think it comes back for me in my stance. I think anywhere that I've truly left has been because I didn't feel respected, whether that was poor treatment or lack of career progression, feeling like I was overlooked, whether that was vocally in my ideas or, again, career progression, ignored when I felt like I should have been getting promotions or raises.
Right.
So I think just overall for me, it is respect the people who you want to keep your business afloat. Treat them with the respect that they deserve. If they are going to make sure that you have a functional business, make sure that they know that you value them. Right. And I think that hiring from within, if that is an opportunity, before you choose to look outward, or at the very least opening it on both sides simultaneously, is incredibly important as well. I think if you can stay with those things and create like that healthy company, and I keep saying this like they're simple things and they're not, and I know that they're not. Healthy company culture and strong management that you can trust and talk to, and feeling respected. It's a lot. There are a lot of things to do, but in truth, I don't feel like they're complicated. I'm not asking for, annual raises of 20%, and I'm not asking you to bankrupt your company. And I'm asking for just common decency. And if you can just employ what you would want in your personal life and treat your people with that kind of respect, the same respect that you would take home to your husband or wife. And I think that that's what it should be. And if you can treat people like that, I think retention would just be a lot easier than it is.
Damn, that was really good. I know. Geez, you had me melting there. You had me like, oh wow, that is awesome. Oh, get this before Jason goes. Look at it.
Yeah.
I would love it. Kenny, next Wednesday.
Yes, Kenny.
Tonight, Kenny, if you message us tonight and you say yes, I will do the show Wednesday. I will put your picture right up there, right on there with Kenny Dunner, live with Kenny Dunner. So, Bill, you've heard him on that, and we have a new guest here. Notice respective person's presence at every occasion. Pratap, that's the truth there. But back to this, Kenny, that's the challenge.
Good stuff.
I love it. Jason, on your note.
Yeah. Well, Kylie was dead on with everything that she said. One thing I would say from a manager's perspective, yes, you can't change everything in the company. You might not have that authority or control to change everything, but what you can change is just how you act. Are you the best version of yourself? How can you expect the best version of an employee that works for you or a teammate that works with you if you're not that exemplifying the best version of yourself as a person? So what that might, and that doesn't just mean, the way you act. It might be, your fitness, your own personal physiology, and mentality. How are you coming off as someone who is very engaged, is happy about life in general, is happy with themselves, as a so if you're not able to feel that way about yourself, how can you expect others to try and lead others and mentor others from that aspect as well? So, I would look in the mirror as a manager. I would look in the mirror and say, I want my employees to exemplify the best version of themselves. And I have to do that, but I have to start by doing that with me.
Boy, you two tonight. That's some good advice there. I love that. It's just again, the wording of the way you say things come across. I think that's a big thing too. I wanted to this book from Paul Bocconi that I had on the show. I've had him on 3 times, and it's 75 Ways Managers. It just goes into depth, and it's on Amazon. And I love this book. It's just there's a lot of stuff that Jason, you would really know a lot of this on your end because it's HR based, but it gives you a lot of great ideas. But on that note, wow, 1 hour and 4 minutes. We did it. And thanks to both, as always. Kylie's back.
Kylie's back.
And we're going to be here with Kenny next Wednesday.
Yes, we are.
We'll have to see if he says yes, if you can make that, Jason, happen with him.
He said he'd love to.
Yep.
Yeah, he's not going to back out on that. I mean, I
Hold
should take
me
a
to it,
screenshot.
Kenny.
Wait a minute, print screen. There we go.
We took a screenshot. I like it.
Kenny, what color tie do you want me to wear?
Right? What I do? Shut
I'll
it
even
off.
let you choose a suit and tie color.
Yeah, right. All right, we'll manage all that stuff. But no, thanks a lot, everybody, and let's talk right after a couple minutes. Thank you, Jason, Kylie, for setting the session. This was really valuable. I love it.
Session.
That's the best thing to hear about it.
All
right, talk to you soon. What's that?
Yeah.
Saying thank you to Pandy for hanging out with us.
Yes. All right. Talk to you right after that.